So King Charles has been sitting on 2 sealed letters from his mother for over 2 years now, and he still hasn't opened them. Or maybe he has and just won't say. Either way, the fact that nobody knows what Queen Elizabeth wrote in her final days is starting to feel less like a private family matter and more like a deliberate choice to keep something buried. And when you look at who keeps showing up in the background of this story, Camilla, the whole thing gets a lot more interesting. Before we get into it, if you're into royal family deep dives where we actually look at the timelines and the receipts, hit subscribe to Crown Watch. We break this stuff down regularly, so here's what we know. Queen Elizabeth died on September 8, 2022 at Balmoral Castle. She was 96 years old, and even at the very end, she was still working, like actually working. She had her red box brought to her room on the day she died. The same red box she'd received every single day of her reign except for her birthday and Christmas. These boxes contained state papers, ministerial briefings, Commonwealth correspondence, all the official business of being the monarch. And Elizabeth was known for actually reading everything in them. She didn't just sign off blindly. She added notes in her distinctive red pen. She paid attention. So when her private secretary, Sir Edward Young, was planning the days after her death, a footman delivered that final red box to him. And when Young opened it, he discovered something unusual. Inside, alongside the official documents, there were 2 sealed private letters. One was addressed to Prince Charles. The other was addressed to Young himself. This detail came from royal biographer Robert Hardman, who researched the transition of power for his book The Making of a King, King Charles III and the Modern Monarchy. Now, neither letter has been made public. Neither letter's contents have been revealed. And here's the thing that stands out to me. Elizabeth didn't do things without thinking. She didn't scribble notes impulsively. Every word she wrote in that red box over 7 decades was intentional, measured, and understood to carry weight. So the fact that she placed 2 sealed private letters in the same box she used for official state business on the day she died, knowing her time was short, that wasn't random. That was her finishing something personal. The question is what? Charles has never publicly discussed the letter. He's never referenced it. He's never given any indication of what his mother wrote to him. And in a family that has leaked everything from phone calls to private journal entries over the years, this silence is unusual. It suggests either the contents are so deeply personal that even the usual palace machinery knows not to touch it, or the contents would cause problems if they got out. Maybe both. The timing of the letter adds another layer. Elizabeth wrote it shortly after February 2022, when she made a major public announcement during her Platinum Jubilee. She expressed her sincere wish that when Charles became king, Camilla would be known as Queen Consort, not Princess Consort, not some lesser title. The full title every queen next to a king had used before her. This was a big deal, like genuinely significant. Because for much of the 1990s, Queen Elizabeth did not want Camilla Parker Bowles in the same room as her. This wasn't subtle. This wasn't a rumor. This was a clear, ongoing decision that she made known through her staff and through careful event planning. If Camilla was going to be somewhere, the Queen simply wouldn't attend. She didn't make public arguments. She didn't issue statements. She communicated her feelings through her absence, which in royal terms is basically a scream. Royal author Tom Bower wrote about this period extensively in his book Rebel Prince, The Power, Passion, and Defiance of Prince Charles. After Princess Diana's 1995 BBC interview, Elizabeth told Charles directly to end his relationship with Camilla. She made her views clear in the only way she thought she could, and according to multiple royal biographers and publications, Elizabeth actually referred to Camilla as that wicked woman. She also told Charles she could never forgive Camilla for how quickly she returned to his life after his separation from Diana. Her exact words reportedly were, "I want nothing to do with her." The phrase, "that wicked woman," spread through royal biographies over the years, and it's worth pausing on because Elizabeth simply didn't talk like that. She was known for restraint, for composure, for never saying in public what could be handled in private. So when language that strong appears in multiple serious accounts from different sources, it suggests real depth of feeling. This wasn't mild disapproval, this was genuine hostility. And to understand where that hostility came from, you have to go back further. Charles first met Camilla around 1970 when she was still Camilla Shand. They started a relationship, but it ended when Charles went on a naval deployment. While he was away, Camilla became engaged to Andrew Parker Bowles and informed Charles in a letter. Royal author Penny Junor reported that Charles found this news genuinely cruel, saying their relationship had been blissful and happy, but fate had only given them 6 months. Years later, they reunited while both were still married to other people. And in December 1989, Charles was at a friend's country house while Camilla was at her home, and they had a private phone call. An amateur radio enthusiast overheard it. The transcript circulated quietly for years before being published in January 1993 by an Australian magazine, and later in Britain by the Sunday People and the Sunday Mirror. That scandal, known as Camilla-gate or Tampon-gate, seriously damaged Charles's public image. The press blamed Camilla for the breakdown of his marriage. A lot of people believed Andrew Parker Bowles could no longer remain married to her, and they divorced in 1995. Elizabeth witnessed all of this unfold. She saw the public reaction. She watched Diana's popularity increase as anger toward Camilla grew, and she felt, genuinely, that the affair had harmed the institution she had spent her entire life protecting. Her feelings were personal, and they were documented by the people closest to her. This decade of hostility toward Camilla wasn't imagined. It was real, and it lasted for years. So when people wonder what Elizabeth might have written in that sealed letter to Charles, this history provides the context. The public endorsement of Camilla as Queen Consort in February 2022 came after a very long, very difficult history, which makes the private letter from the same period even more intriguing. Was the letter consistent with the public statement? Was it different? Only one person alive today knows the answer to that question, and he's not talking. Now, Elizabeth wasn't the only one with strong feelings. Prince Philip wrote letters to Diana that revealed his true views about the whole situation, and those letters are worth looking at because they show how the family actually felt behind closed doors. Philip expressed genuine discomfort about Charles's relationship. He told Diana that Charles was silly to risk everything with Camilla, and then he wrote something that's honestly pretty striking. He said, "I cannot imagine anyone in their right mind leaving you for Camilla." Then he added, "Such a prospect never entered our heads." That last line is revealing. Philip and the Queen did not see Camilla as a serious, long-term presence in Charles's life. They didn't anticipate this situation at all. Now they had to deal with the fallout, and Philip's letters show how the family viewed Camilla at that time. He didn't see her as a threat to the monarchy in some grand strategic sense. He saw her as an embarrassment. He thought Charles's choice made no logical sense, and he said so directly. During this correspondence, Philip and Diana actually developed a surprisingly warm connection, which is notable because they usually had a formal relationship and not much understanding of each other's roles in the family. Their shared concern about Charles and Camilla temporarily brought them closer. Philip was honest with her, and Diana appreciated that, but the warmth didn't last. Philip eventually acknowledged that Diana had also been involved in extramarital affairs and suggested both of them were responsible for their troubled marriage. After that, Diana distanced herself, and their candid communication ended. But those earlier letters captured Philip's honest feelings about Camilla, and that kind of documentation is rare in a family that usually communicates through intermediaries and carefully crafted statements. The reason these letters matter to the current mystery is that royal correspondence has a way of becoming public over time. The Camilla-gate tape eventually came out. Queen Victoria's journals were made public. Private discussions between royals and their staff have often surfaced years or decades later. So the curiosity about Elizabeth's sealed letters to Charles isn't just idle gossip. There's a historical pattern that suggests private royal correspondence doesn't always stay private forever. Philip died in April 2021, 14 months before Elizabeth. We don't know whether he would have agreed with her public support for Camilla as Queen Consort in February 2022. We don't know if his feelings about Camilla had softened before he passed. What we do know from his letters to Diana is how he felt at the time, and those views were clearly unfavorable. So that's the background. Elizabeth called Camilla that wicked woman and meant it. Philip thought Charles was being foolish and couldn't understand the choice. The family spent years managing the public fallout while privately trying to end the relationship. And then, over the course of 2 decades, everything shifted. In April 2002, Camilla attended the Queen Mother's funeral. That marked a turning point. For years, she hadn't been allowed at major royal events, so her presence at that funeral was seen as a signal of growing acceptance. From that funeral in 2002 to Elizabeth's statement in 2022, Camilla worked quietly and carefully. She focused on charities, particularly domestic violence survivors and literacy programs. She avoided attention that might recall the controversies of the 1990s. She showed up to the events she was asked to attend and operated below the radar. Charles and Camilla married in April 2005 in a civil ceremony, Elizabeth didn't attend the ceremony itself because of her role as head of the Church of England, but she hosted their reception at Windsor Castle. She gave a speech that began with a metaphor about a horse race and then toasted the couple. The choices Elizabeth made that day were meaningful. She didn't have to host a reception. She didn't have to give the speech. She chose to. In 2023, Camilla was crowned alongside Charles at Westminster Abbey, the first coronation in 70 years. She wore a crown adapted from one made for Queen Mary. The visual was striking. The woman who had been excluded from rooms, called wicked, blamed for a marriage crisis, was now being crowned queen. And yet, according to author Tom Quinn's book, Yes Ma'am, The Secret Life of Royal Servants, published in March 2025, Camilla felt terrified about becoming queen. She told Charles she didn't want the scrutiny or the expectations that came with the title. Charles's response reportedly was, "You're going to do it for me, darling." That exchange matters because it shows how Camilla arrived at her position. She didn't push for power. She didn't campaign for the title. She reached this point through a long and complicated history, Elizabeth's eventual public support, and Charles's determination that she would be by his side no matter what. But here's where the whole thing gets genuinely unclear. Elizabeth made a public statement in February 2022 saying she wanted Camilla to be queen consort. Then she wrote a private sealed letter to Charles, placed it in a red box, and died a few months later. Those two things happened in the same period, from the same person to the same son, but we don't know if they conveyed the same message. The public statement was carefully worded, approved by staff, and designed to shape public perception. The private letter was sealed, nobody else read it. The public statement could have been about duty and the stability of the institution. The private letter could have been something entirely different. It could have been a mother saying what she really thought now that the public position was handled. It could have been warnings, conditions, final thoughts she didn't want, filtered through palace communications staff. Or it could have been genuinely warm, a blessing she wanted her son to have in private that she couldn't express publicly without reopening old wounds. The point is, we don't know. And Charles's complete silence about the letter is the thing that keeps this mystery alive. If the letter simply said, "I love you and I'm proud of you and I support your wife," there would be no reason to keep it sealed and unacknowledged. He could reference it without revealing every word. He could say it brought him comfort. He could allude to its contents in a way that honored his mother while maintaining privacy. But he's done none of that. The letter is treated like something that can't be discussed at all. That's what makes me think there's more to this story. Not necessarily something scandalous, not necessarily something that would bring down the monarchy, but something complicated, something that doesn't fit neatly into the public narrative of a family that worked through its differences and found peace. The real story of Elizabeth and Camilla is a story of almost 30 years of tension, hostility, gradual acceptance, and eventual public endorsement. But public endorsement and private feeling aren't the same thing, and Elizabeth knew that better than anyone. She spent her entire reign separating her personal views from her public duties. She met with prime ministers she disagreed with. She shook hands with people she didn't like. She attended events she would have preferred to skip. Her whole life was a demonstration that what you do publicly and what you think privately can be completely different things. So the idea that her public statement about Camilla and her private letter to Charles might not perfectly align isn't some wild conspiracy theory. It's consistent with how she lived for 96 years. Whatever Elizabeth wrote in that letter, Charles holds it alone. The woman once called wicked is now queen. Those two facts are both true, and how they connect is something Elizabeth took with her. Maybe the letter explains it, maybe it complicates it. Maybe it says exactly what the public statement said, and Charles's silence is just genuine grief and a desire for privacy. But when you look at the history, the hostility, the decades of distance, and then the sudden public reversal followed by a sealed private letter that nobody will discuss, it's hard not to wonder if Elizabeth left her son something more complicated than a simple blessing. The letters are still sealed as far as anyone knows. Charles is still silent. The public story is that everything worked out, that forgiveness happened, that the family healed. And maybe that's true, but sealed letters have a way of suggesting there's more to say, and the fact that this one hasn't been opened or acknowledged in over 2 years tells its own story. The Queen, who never did anything without thinking carefully about what it meant, left her son a final message. And whatever it said, it was important enough to seal, important enough to hide, and important enough that even now, nobody's willing to talk about it. And here's something else worth considering. We've been talking about the letter to Charles, but there were 2 letters in that red box. The second one was addressed to Sir Edward Young, the Queen's private secretary. Young served in that role from 2017 until her death. and he was one of the people who knew her daily rhythms better than almost anyone. He saw her in her private moments. He managed the transition of power. He was the person who opened that final red box and found the letters inside. The fact that Elizabeth wrote to him personally on the same day in the same box suggests she was tying up loose ends with the people who mattered most to the functioning of her reign. What she wrote to Young is also unknown, and he has never spoken about it publicly. But the existence of that second letter tells us something important. Elizabeth wasn't just writing a personal note to her son. She was closing out her working life with the same precision she applied to everything else. She was leaving instructions or reflections or gratitude, or maybe all three, for the man who had helped her run the monarchy in her final years. That letter might be completely unrelated to the one she wrote to Charles, or it might provide context that would help explain the first letter. We simply don't know. And Young, like Charles, has chosen complete silence. That silence from both recipients creates a vacuum, and vacuums in royal coverage always get filled with speculation. But the speculation here isn't baseless. It's grounded in decades of documented history, in the Queen's own words about Camilla, in Philip's letters to Diana, in the careful choreography of Camilla's gradual acceptance into the family. Every step of that journey was measured, every public appearance was calculated, and then at the very end, Elizabeth wrote something private and sealed it. She didn't leave it in a drawer to be found later. She placed it in her red box, the instrument of her official duties, the thing that represented her constitutional role. That placement was symbolic, whether she intended it to be or not. She was merging the personal and the official in a way she had spent her entire reign avoiding. That's the detail I keep coming back to. Elizabeth could have left a letter for Charles anywhere. She could have given it to a trusted aide with instructions to deliver it after her death. She could have placed it among her personal papers at Windsor, but she didn't. She put it in the red box, the same red box that contained government documents, state secrets, matters of national importance. She put her private words to her son in the same container as her public duties, as if to say that whatever she wrote carried the weight of both. That choice was deliberate, and deliberate choices from someone who thought as carefully as Elizabeth did are always worth examining. The red box itself has become part of the mythology of her reign. Every prime minister who served under her knew about the red boxes. They arrived daily, even on weekends, even when she was traveling. They were the physical manifestation of her commitment to the job. And on the final day of her life, she added something to that box that wasn't part of the official flow of government business. She added her own voice, her own final thoughts, her own sealed testimony. Whatever she said in that letter, she wanted it to be found alongside the work of the state, not tucked away in a personal drawer where it might be overlooked or dismissed as purely emotional. She gave it the same status as the documents that shaped the country. That's not nothing, that's a statement in itself. So we're left with a mystery that has all the elements of a classic royal story. A long-buried conflict, a gradual public reconciliation, a private message that might confirm the reconciliation or might undermine it. Two people who know the truth and aren't speaking, and a public that's left to read between the lines of every public appearance, every gesture, every carefully worded statement from the palace. The story of Elizabeth and Camilla is still being written, even though one of them is gone, and as long as that letter remains sealed, the final chapter stays unwritten. Charles knows what it says. Maybe Camilla knows too, maybe she doesn't, but the rest of us are left with the history, the context, and the question that Elizabeth left behind. What do you say to your son about the woman you once called wicked when you know you're about to leave him alone with her on the throne?